Stephanie Matera. I am a clinical assistant professor here in the Integrated Marketing and Communications Department. I also lead the PR and Corporate Communication Graduate Program as academic director. We're very grateful to Pamela Vail for bringing another talk to us with senior leaders in the beauty industry. We know this is something that's really important to our students and exciting, and you just bring the most illustrious panels. It's also Women's History Month, so I think it's very fitting that we would have this panel this evening. Just have quick housekeeping items, and then I'm going to pass it to Pamela in just a second. So we have another event coming up, and we would be remiss if we didn't tell you about it. So on Thursday, March 13th from 12 to 1 right here in the Midtown Center, you can join us for Leadership and Changing Times. Chief Marketing Officer, JPMorgan Chase, Carla Hassan, will be in a talk with our clinical professor, Tariq Khan. They're from the Integrated Marketing Program. Please follow us on our social channels. We have LinkedIn, we have Instagram. We're very active in both of those places. We have the Student Association. So PR League is a member of the Public Relations Society of America. So it's a PR SSA chapter for students. And then we also have the Marketing Association, which is IMA. Please take pictures, tag us tonight. We'd love to hear your thoughts and have you capture this great event. So before I pass it to Pamela to introduce her panel, Pamela is a professor here with us, an adjunct assistant professor. She teaches in the Integrated Marketing Master's Degree Program, but she brings more than 3 decades of experience in the beauty industry. She founded Pamela Vail Consulting in 2004. Before doing that, she worked in major cosmetic companies at senior levels and held positions with L'Oreal, Avon, I'm not going to name all of them, but Revlon, Estee Lauder, Smashbox Cosmetics, just a few household names that you all know and probably use, right? So I just want to say thank you again on behalf of the Integrated Marketing Communications Department, and I will pass it to you to introduce your panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marissa. Thank you. So I wanted to take a moment to welcome you all to this Women in Leadership panel. I want to just begin by saying, having worked here, taught here, when I'm not running my consulting firm, for the last 8 years, I have gotten to know you. You guys, many of you are my students, many of you I know and love. And every semester I talk about the beauty industry, I talk about brands I've touched and worked on. And at the end of the semester, you always come to me and say, Professor Vail, how can I get into the beauty industry? How do I get my foot in the door? And how can I become a leader? And so having heard that year after year, I finally put together a little PowerPoint presentation, brought it to the team here at NYU, Graduate Business Studies Program, SPF, and Kathleen Rennie, Marissa Serrano, and Robin Smith. I don't know if she's in the room, but they put their arms around it and said, yes, we have to do this. This is the 3rd Women in Leadership panel we've had here in this amazing program. We had the great Kate Green came in March of 2024, and in the fall, we had Lauren Rooney, Vice President of Global Marketing at Firmenich, DSM Firmenich. We also had Kathleen Williams, Vice President of Membership at CEW, and we had Diane Krecka as the Executive Vice President from Arcade Sampling. And so this is our 3rd session. We have 3 amazing, iconic women in the room. I just can't emphasize that enough. I'm so honored and grateful that you guys took time out of your very busy schedules to be here and share your wisdom, your warmth, and your leadership with the group of students here today. And so I just want to say, before we start, I'm going to introduce the panelists. I want to say that this isn't just for the girls in the room, although it is about women in leadership. It's also for the guys in the room. Those of you who all want their girlfriends, their sisters, and their future wives to rise in leadership. And so, and more money in the household, if you know what I mean. So it's really something for all of you. And I'm just thankful you're here. I'm going to go ahead and start introducing our amazing panelists. Jenny B. Fine is the editor-in-chief of WWD Beauty, Inc. She's right there on the end. Jenny oversees beauty content at Fairchild Media Group, WWD's parent company. Jenny began working at Beauty Inc. in 2001 and has been executive editor for WWD since November 2017. Prior to joining Beauty Inc., Jenny was editor of LuckyMagazine.com, where she was responsible for overseeing the launch and editorial content. She was previously director of iVillage.com beauty channel and the beauty director for Self magazine. She began her magazine publishing career at Fairchild as a senior associate editor of Salon News and Beauty News. Fine is a native of Louisville, Kentucky, and holds a BA in art history and an MA in journalism from New York University. She's one of us. Welcome, Jenny. Robin Mason, sitting right next to her, is the president of fine fragrance in North America for DSM Firmenich, a fine fragrance flavors and fragrance supplier. Prior to this role, Robin was senior vice president of global marketing at Elizabeth Arden, headquartered in New York City. And then that was after transitioning from her career at Estee Lauder, where she held positions of increasing responsibility in sales and marketing for 12 years. She then moved to Shiseido, worked at Shiseido for 8 years, where she was senior vice president and manager of the Shiseido fragrance portfolio of luxury brands. Raised in the beauty industry, Robin spent most of her life surrounded by cosmetics and fragrances, the daughter of a lifelong beauty industry professional. Robin is most intrigued with the concept of new products and the process of building brands to the consumer. This foundation led her to graduate from Fashion Institute of Technology with a magna cum laude honor position. Thank you, Robin, for joining us. Yay! And Linda G. Levy, president of the Fragrance Foundation. Yeah. The Fragrance Foundation, or affectionately known as TFF for those of us who are in the industry, is a premier resource for industry expertise, innovation, and education. The Fragrance Foundation is a nonprofit organization united under the mission statement to inspire the world to discover the artistry and passion of fragrance. And it's devoted to nurturing talent, celebrating the creativity of perfumers, engaging consumers, and expanding the industry as a leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Recognized as the fragrance queen for her extraordinary, outstanding knowledge and expertise, Linda is also a champion and proponent of industry diversity, spearheading the Fragrance Foundation's landmark initiative, #FragranceForwardTFF, that provides mentorship, scholarship, and career opportunities for people of diverse backgrounds. After launching in the fall of 2021, #FragranceForwardTFF has galvanized the entire industry to take a pledge to increase diversity, create real-time opportunities, and open doors through mentorship, scholarships, job opportunities, and proactive recruitment. She's very proud to lead the industry with expanded membership and as well engagement in the fragrance community in the USA and beyond. Under Linda's leadership, and we've all witnessed this, and it's a great, great contribution. She has really brought perfumers, our creative artists, sometimes we call them the unsung heroes, to the forefront of, and really talking about them and giving them consistent recognition. In addition, the membership has expanded to include not only large corporations in the industry, but indie entrepreneurs in early stages who are provided with guidance and internship. Linda's storied career also includes a variety of executive leadership roles at Macy's Inc., Estee Lauder Companies, L'Oreal, Wella, Procter & Gamble, as well as Shiseido, Coty, and other hallmark companies and brands. A graduate of Lehigh University, Linda resides in New York City with her husband. Welcome, Linda. Yay! I told you, they're amazing. They're just amazing. But before we begin, I just want to share with you a couple of little statistics about women in leadership, just to set the stage. You know, when you look at the Fortune 500 companies in 2023, women reached a milestone in terms of CEOs of major Fortune 500 companies. We represent 10%. 10% of the largest corporations in the country are led by women. The good news is there was growth in 2024. 8 more women became CEOs in the Fortune 500 largest public companies. Over the past year, that's a significant rise, but we're still 10.4% of the total number of companies in terms of female leadership. You know, when we look at companies for the future, and this is research done by Korn Ferry, this is 2024 research, women leaders' skills are in demand. Women CEOs exhibit greater humility than the general group of CEOs, along with equal risk-taking, assertiveness, and persistence, as well as emotional intelligence. And with the right attention to the CEO pipeline, Fortune 500 companies could double the percentage of female CEOs from 10 to 20% in the next 3 to 5 years. Let's just talk about the beauty industry, and then I promise I will turn it over to the questions for the panelists. So within the beauty industry, the numbers still aren't great. They're a little better, but they're still not great. So when you look at the total beauty industry, the total female representation is 69%. 70% of the employees that work in the beauty industry are women. About 63% are at the junior level. The number of female CEOs in 2024, in terms of the top 20 beauty manufacturers today, they hold 15% of CEO positions. In summary, in an industry largely led and run by women, men still dominate the CEO, the upper echelon of management. So do we have a long way to go? Yes, we do. And that is why this panel today is so important. So I'm going to start right away with the questions, and I'm going to start with you. Because you're the closest, but you've seen these questions before. And what I want to ask each of you is to talk a little bit about your leadership journey. You know, really, what were those movements through your career, and how long did it take? And when was the moment that you really felt you were moving into a leadership role? Can you just talk a little bit about your journey? I'm gonna face this way. I'm gonna sit over here. See what you want.
My story, and Pam said she's been in it decades, so have I. I'm gonna give you like old school. I answered an ad in the New York Times business section. This is before anyone got a job online. Just think about this. I had a lot of tenacity. I saw something and I went after it. And in those days, everyone actually had resumes that were on paper. So I printed mine on a gray piece of paper. I found out who was receiving them at Lancome, which is part of L'Oreal, and I forced them, you know, the assistant to the person to see. One day she became my head of HR at Lancome. My point is only the way that you found the job years ago was so different than what it is today. So I think what we'll talk about today a bit is, even though you think it's so tough, I mean, you can go shopping for a job. So anyway, I'm gonna make my 30-something years fast, but the journey is interesting. I took this job at Lancome that's part of L'Oreal. I was there about 3 years. They called the job sales promotion, which, similar to marketing, can be absolutely anything. I was there for 3 years and learned a lot. Then went to the Estee Lauder companies for about 10 years, where I started on the USA brand, and then I went global. But the theme, when I thought about him, of what my journey is about, I always did the job description, but I always did something else that I really liked. Because when you start out in the real world working, you're really lucky if you like the majority of the tasks you're given. And you've got to learn that before, but I went beyond that. So in every single job I had, that's one of my biggest themes. There's a job description, and then there's what else I could add. Now, I had to do the job description, or I couldn't say, but I didn't know I would get back to them. I went to Estee Lauder, where I went from USA business to, Lilly business as well. I think a really good lesson for this group, and when I tell anyone it's shocking, I can tell you later what I did. I was in marketing strategy, I did a lot of things. But I decided I wanted to make a change after 10 years where I was very successful and learned a lot. And I created a system there that's my legacy. I'm not, excuse the old expression, an IT person, but I'm very organized. Anyway, I decided I wanted a new adventure. I left very amicably. I don't think you know this man. And I left on the day 9/11. Okay, I live in New York City. I just want to emphasize this little factoid because there will be moments in your life that you'll think it's so hard to get a job. Well, the whole world closed down. No one was hiring anyone. The world was in a trauma, but as I hate to be obnoxious, but there are 20 traumas every day now. You know, there used to be like headlines, now every day is a million headlines. That's why we love each other better tonight. So, my point is, you almost start from scratch and you say, what do you want to do? I thought I was going to change industries at the time, but no one wants to hire anyone who hadn't done exactly what they needed. So I stayed in the beauty business, although I thought I was going to change. And I worked at very different companies doing very different things. Every job, other than the New York Times job, I found by knowing people. And I wasn't impressed with that. I was just like you. I was looking for a job. But I would constantly, this is one of my other little treasures, I would always make a list of target companies, and I would like find someone in my life somewhere, somehow, that was connected to that, to sort of understand and sort of find my way in. So New York Times ad, the rest of my life, now I think when I went to Motor, it was recruiter, but after that, it was always about who do I know, and most of the time it was someone that knew I was good at something. So they were encouraging me to come into those. I'm going to just summarize because my story is long and there are other great stories up here. But every job that I had a different definition, and that was also very different. In my industry, our industry, you're usually in sales, creative, strategy, accounting, or, you know, in the lab. I did a lot of different things. And it sounds really good now because it really has to be the best I can be. But at the time, it was very difficult for people to understand what it was. Like if you've done a lot of different things, but you don't say your whole life is, you know, you want to market, which by the way, it's not even one of the negatives to it, takes a while. So I think if I can just speed it up, after always being on the brand side, always being, you know, either a USA or global role, I did what I promised myself I would never do. It's another life lesson. Put yourself somewhere where you're really uncomfortable and get comfortable. And I met someone I knew and I was looking for a job. I was really sick of traveling. I had a very big, like on the plane all the time. Sounds exciting, but not always. And I went to Macy's. So in those days, retailers were like in the year 1950 when it was the year 2000, you know, it was that old fashioned. I mean, everything was on paper. It was extremely bizarre. But the great thing that I learned at Macy's, which makes me the best I can be at the job that I do today, is I learned who the customer was. It's a lot of marketing, a lot of branding is about getting the product out. And after that, everyone sort of says, I hope it worked out. And then they watch the sales number, you know, it's a little silly, but my experience, besides meeting great people who I hired, is another key. So the two ladies sitting over there, I met in completely different ways at Macy's. Like we intersected, but we had no idea exactly how great we were. So even when I brought them into my fold, like I knew there was a spark and we had this sort of attitude in common. But again, this networking thing and proving yourself and really knowing what to do is great. So at the end of this little journey, when I met these two ladies in various spots throughout, I did another thing that I thought I'd never do. I went to this thing called the Greatest Foundation. I can tell you more about later. And it was a complete shipwreck. They know this. It was a disaster. Nothing was really going on. It wasn't successful. But the theme in all of these jobs was I loved fixing things. Usually I left once I fixed them. The challenge was over. I made myself. But this is the best job I've ever had in my life. because I get to do everything that I really like. And I have a very creative side, and I have a very big negotiating business side. So I went from being responsible, not exaggerating, for billions of dollars and 850 stores and online, like an orchestra leader, thousands, I think thousands of people, to a mini version of life where we're like 5 people. And it's the greatest joy, and I still get to recycle myself with 2 other people you're about. So networking, answering that, you got all that. Relationships, networking, that's how you get a job.
Robin, tell us about your journey.
Of course, well, I resonate a lot with what Linda said. And, yes, I've led these ladies along my journey as well, but I think, you know, the biggest thing for me is how each of my, you know, the career ladder and each of my built upon. So, you know, I agree with what Linda said as far as the principles of importance. Step back, I graduated FIT, and I knew I wanted to. Grew up from a little girl, selling those Bibles, playing with lipsticks, and so I just found the industry utterly glamorous. I didn't know anything about the business side of it, and my mother was very much about instilling it's fun, it's pretty, it's glamorous, but I needed to have a substance background in business. So I went to business school, study, and when I left, I joined the retail program, the executive program. It was a training program. I didn't know that. We met later in our careers, but from there, I created things that I was trying to set up. So I learned from a very early age about how important everything is. And even to this day, I still bring that to life. So upon leaving there, I went to Estee Lauder, probably one of the best training grounds for really learning how to develop human products. And I grew up there in business school, and I traveled the world. It was a wonderful experience. I cultivated a lot of the knowledge I got developing very rooted program, but it was something that I was blessed and even trained by others. So happy memory. And then my career really went into skincare for a little bit, and back to fragrance through a number of different companies, Revlon, Shiseido. But I think as each role built upon the next, I stepped away for a moment and said, my goodness, I've never done anything other than beauty. And I studied marketing in school. And I decided I wanted to be a news reporter. Not cool, but I was a writer, but. So, of course, I did not do that. But I did have this little thing in my head that, if I did out of something, I just followed this one path. And this is how life is funny, I think, in your career, because as I grew up in the industry, in a variety of different roles, at one point, I was given the opportunity to be on air and help train and sell beauty products, which was about 12 years ago. And I felt like that was my news reporter ever. I was able to stand there in front of millions of Americans at 2 a.m. and sell freedom, which, by the way, you cannot sell because you can't sell the TV screen, and did quite well. And that was, you know, I think one of my lessons is not only the relationship with that person today, that is critical, but it's also to not be afraid to take side steps. What I learned through media training, being on TV, the idea of being able to speak, not being afraid of audiences, being able to project and tell a story. Beauty telling stories is everything. And I met a tremendously different network. So again, I feel like every one of those built on my story in my life. And leadership, you know, really comes from the early days of being given more and more responsibility. And I think I agree completely with what Linda said. You do the job description and then some. I guess no, And not only did I learn, but I got recognized as someone who really is passionate. So that's really when I discovered that leading is something that I was. So my story is a little different. I grew up in Kentucky. I loved magazines. I loved fashion magazines. They were my portal into this glamorous world that I always dreamt about, and I knew that I had to live in New York. So I convinced my parents. I studied art history at NYU, which was great fun. And I got out of undergraduate school and like landed my dream job with the fashion editor of New York Magazine. And I was in heaven. I lasted about 10 months. And if anybody has seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada, like that was you. I was the Anne Hathaway character. And it was just it was a moment in time that it actually doing what I thought I wanted to do and discovering that it wasn't actually really focused me on what I did want to do. So I went back to school. I got a master's degree in journalism, and I just traveled with the beauty industry because my first job out of school was at Fairchild, where I am now. A magazine that doesn't exist anymore that was geared towards the professional beauty industry. I had no idea what that was. It means salons and spas. And it was just covering the business of the professional beauty industry. And I think what I really resonated with Robin and Linda was that basically we were a staff of 4, and the more that you could do, the more you were given to do. And that was great. So I wrote, I edited, I worked with the art department, and I created ideas for stories and covers, and this is what it should look like. And it was, this idea, this was my job description. And in reality, this was what I was doing. And I think when you do that, you get noticed. And I see that I have a young team today, and that's the mentality. And that was how I got my start. Obviously the media business has changed a lot. And as a media business has changed, I've changed with it. And I just learned different platforms, and I think of it as a geodesic dome, and you just have to keep up with what's going on in the world. Beauty is a reflection of culture, and that is what we do. And so we too have to be part of culture and make sure that we're covering it. And I look at you, you're all going to be in the beauty industry one day, and maybe be on the platform where you are rather than.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I know, well, I remember when I was at Avon, the only way you ever get promoted was to do your job and go above and beyond. Show us who you're going above and beyond. And I think that's very sage advice from all of our panelists. We're going to talk about new brand building right now for the next few minutes. Because you've all built amazing brands in your career, from a journalistic point of view, from a sales, marketing point of view, a supplier point of view, and retail and sales and marketing perspective. Just talk to me a little bit about, share with me, our audience, a little bit about how you approach building a brand. What are those critical elements of success? You talked a little bit about the consumer, but in your strategy of brand building, what would be those key pillars, key elements of success that you would say are important today?
I think I will describe it in my current job. Prior to the current job, I pretty much was picking up brands or building on brands that existed at Estee Lauder and various places. And in my opinion, Robin's really going to nail it up. So I'm leaving that for her. So I know she's done. I would say what's interesting about the job I'm in right now, you've been a witness to this, is I walked into something that needed to be redefined. So I was telling this to Lena today. I went on a listening tour. I don't remember very that. Anyway, I went to every member that I was on the board and I went to other members, and rather than assuming, because I was actually a member of the organization of what I wanted to do, it was like building it from the bottom up. You know, marketing is either creating a product top down, like I'm a fashion designer, I'm gonna tell you what's next, or it's from the bottom up, where you really go to the consumer. So similarly, I went to everyone, not assuming that I would, even though I thought I knew what I wanted to do. And by talking to people, I got a lot of information. So that's sort of like consumer research-ish, which is the master at P&G where I was. And then decided that it was time for us together to build a strategy and a mission and define who we were gonna be and what were the priorities. And that's a big thing, like, we've all done so many things plus our job. It's really, you really have to decide what's the most important and make sure everyone who's involved with it, the product or the mission that I am in this organization, that everyone is aligned. So we rewrote our mission statement. I remember it was a snowy day. And we rewrote all the objectives. And I remember, Jenny, you were even there. I did like a State of the Union. And I said, this is what we're going to do. And I looked to see how we could brand ourselves. Now, we are a not-for-profit supporting the fragrance industry that is very big, very small, and everything in between. And the thing, this is just one thing I'll say I invented, because we're about to do it in a new way and better every year. I realized as a segment of a very important consumer world, we didn't have fragrance day. So I knew there was a lipstick day, I knew that there was a pizza day, I knew that there was an ice cream day, but marketing is really my core. And I remember, Jenny, you were in the room, I got the job in September, we all sort of started this job together at the same time, it's funny. And I said, we're gonna do fragrance day. I had no idea, it's now by January, and it's, by the way, fragrance day is March 21st, religious holiday, you know. And it started small and it just got bigger and bigger. So my point is I could go on, but I don't want to. I want to hear the other families in here. I defined what need was needed. Everyone talks about what they call the white space. This was like starting from the beginning, but going up the hill because everyone thought we didn't do anything well at the time, and just finding a way and defining what was important. Because the other problem we all confess to is we think about our jobs and we want our jobs in this 24/7. That'll be in lessons learned not to do when we get to the end of the conversation. But I'm just saying, you really have to know your customer. You really need to know what is out there that you can access. And it went from like a small organization that did things and had parties to embracing the community, getting them all involved and letting everyone have a vote and part of it. So I guess building the Fragrance Foundation brand is my thing.
Absolutely. Robin,
And it's a brand.
talk to us about your brand building.
It's a real.
I think, that could be a whole separate one, sure.
I know.
I could talk for an hour because that's my passion. But, you know, if I were to condense it down to a 60-second response, brand building today is just, it's an art, it's a science, and it's, it starts with the customer, knowing who they are, knowing what you're going after. And, you know, brands that are successful, when you look at the beauty, they know who they are, they're consistent in how they're communicating. They have a brand purpose, a mission statement about who they are, what they're building. There's a authenticity response that's real. They understand the difference, how to communicate to their customer. But when we look at brands, you know, now on the other side of the business, in 5 years, I do feel that. Today, I'm fireflies, and on those brands, you hold the feelings and really, so, you know, the first part of my career, I'm doing those brands, I'm working. Learning about the idea of, you know, artistry and all the time, it's always important to do product, work, given, but really brand building is honestly just the essence of knowing who you are, knowing what you build, knowing who your customer is, Are you just one there or are you different? How do you feel the gap? There are so many brands today that are, you know, finding their way. That you know, then there are others that have products, you know, that are very product is still changing. Into stratosphere. So, you know, as long as you understand what you're putting together, you can really.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. Then, talk us about how you building brands today, particularly in the way that journalism has evolved. Since the days of the governor's drive to today.
You can really think about it. I mean, for us, like, everything really goes through the lens of the reader and the person on the other side, and what is this story, this piece of information doing for that person. And we have different, you know, different platforms have different audiences. And, you know, for us, we're always looking to see, like, how can we, with what audience do we want to attract on what platform, and how are we best doing that? I think in terms of the beauty industry, we see a bazillion brands. There's probably too many right now. I think that, you know, that what we're seeing, it has to be creative, it has to have a point of differentiation. I think it has to, you have to listen to the customer. You know, one of the things that is so interesting today, we have a lot about heritage and legacy brands versus emerging brands and indie brands. And one thing that the emerging indies have done so well is to listen to the customer on social media, right? Whereas let's take a French brand and you can think of any of, like, think of a well-known luxury French brand. Like, those brands use social media, right? Because they still want to control the message. And it's hard. It's like a muscle memory to try to have top-down communication and see it in their results. Like, and it's just tough. So I think, you know, if I reflect on the past 15 years that I've been in this role, covering the business end of the beauty industry, branding has changed dramatically.
Yes.
And the lifespan of it has changed.
And, you know, you have like 12% growth in these emerging brands, these luxury brands, but you also have an explosion of brands entering the market. And just as you alluded to, there's so many brands out there.
How do they look at Bobby Brown, right? Like, you guys know Bobby Brown, so she started her brand, it was bought by the Estee Lauder company. She stayed for a long time and exited. 3 years later, started a new brand, Jones Road.
It's up there.
Yeah. Which has over $150 million in sales. And she's in 7 physical points of sale. And online, like, it's an extraordinary story, and I think just illustrative of how the industry works today and how different it is.
Yeah, and you look at brands like Lucia and Doc Elephant, there's so many DTC brands that have exploded. You look at the celebrity phenomenon, it's just massive. I want to shift gears though, because I'm cognizant of time, and talk about your leadership stuff. So this is about women in leadership. It's about some of the challenges you face as you grow as a woman in the industry, and some of the triumphs. And so I'd love for you to share each of you your particular approach to leadership, your style. What do you hold dear in your leadership mantra? And share with us your philosophy of leadership. And if you will, share some of the triumphs or some of the challenges you went up the ladder. Was it hard? You know, did it take a long time? And just share with us a little bit about your leadership style and your approach to going into your leadership. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I want to mention again, I graduated from Lincoln University. I was in that era where men's schools were going co-ed and women's schools were going co-ed. I was in my very early phases. This was not a fuss at all. Where it seems like you can have a great social life and you got thousands of guys out there who know you're there because we're such a small group. It was extremely negative in a lot of ways, but it started to build me. I never worried growing up, and I don't know what this is, if it's DNA or whatever, but like my father said, you could do anything. I actually believed I could do anything. So I really have been probably outspoken since I was a very young person. But I think being part of that co-ed thing helped me with this woman's role. Not exaggerating, I started out writing one way, and I didn't know that, oh, this is very good. I started thinking I'd be an English major, and then I switched to the business school. And when I was at the business school, they would turn to me literally and say, and now we'd like the woman's perspective. You know, that made me a little tough. And it made me really realize what it was gonna be like out there. Once I got into this particular industry as a woman, although your stats are really scary, Bill, I always felt I could do what I could do, and I've had a lot of women I was their mentors. I would call Robin Burns and my mentors, Leonard Water, unbelievable, and my mentors. But so the challenge of being a woman didn't strike me until I got much later in my career. I think it's really important in life as a student, as a person, as a professional, to have as much clarity about who you are, who other people think you are, and who you really are. If your boss thinks, if your boss has a perception that you are something other than you think, that perception is your reality. So never forget that. That's like one of my big lessons. I also think his parents kind enough to talk about how important inclusivity is. I don't care what age you are, I don't care what color you are, I don't care what sexual orientation is, I don't care where you grew up, I don't care what school you went to, I don't care about any of that. I care about what you can do, and I'm very much the same way about me. We went through a phase, I think, getting jobs where, you know, your GPA, like, I have no interest in that. The way I would interview people is some young person would come my office and then go to an interview, and one of the other people who work for me, I would say, 15 minutes into this, I want you to come in and try to get me out of your room. And I want to see how this person reacts to understand that they was here. Because every minute, anything could change. Even though we're beauty, it's, you know, crisis management every day. So I think my leadership style, which has evolved, is I'm extremely driven and possessed. That I love what I do. It's a good thing and a bad thing. You have to learn how to, when you can turn it off. I don't believe there is anything I cannot achieve. Because I assess if I can or not. I try not to make unreasonable goals. And I think over a while, you evolve. Every single job you have, you can learn from, every person you can learn from. And the biggest theme to growing and getting to be wherever we are in our careers is by really listening to people. A lot of people come in an interview and you're so intent on how you're going to answer a question. This is normal, but not good. You have to listen because there are hints along the way. By the way, you're interviewing them, and they're interviewing. Let's not kid around. So I don't even remember where this question started, but I guess it's not. I make every budget. I make every timetable, everything on the timeline. We all said we are over delivering on what we were asked to do. And we add a little of us into everything we do. And that's what makes a really good leader. And the last thing I think I'm going to say, I said this everything, big or small team. I will constantly say, no, we're not doing that. But come back, you have a reason to change. And I can change my mind and I will think flexible because it isn't a yes or no, everything's part of the change. So,
Robin, what's about your leadership style?
You know,
What do you believe in as a leader?
well, I wanted on that, I tried to think about it evolve, but I think the written to the industry is emotional. there's a lot of women, as you said, or even 70% female, at all levels of organization. So I think I've always been in the I think about, you know, my superpower, today, I'm definitely say, really was guided through my journey now. Stepping back into being a female leader, growing into a female leader, that's a different story, but the ability to listen and to connect. You know, I do believe that women our organization is like we are 70% female, and you know, we have to support each other, lift each other up, and there for each other, we both should be rewarded, and that's really important. But we are doing that, and I want to make sure that as much of it as I can. When you think about the journey, though, I started my career 25 years ago, so it was, as Linda was saying, a different time. I was reading grab bottle. And I think, you know, today it might not be as late as that, but there are other lives. I still work in an organization, but it's a lot of work in men. But we're making our way slowly but surely. That women support women. Right. It didn't get there overnight. It did take time, but I do see that there is certainly now a movement that's there's the power of listening, connecting, understanding the data, but action.
Sure. How much is that your research? Think about this because honestly, like I even see it, and we do all of this research. And we've actually seen a number of women in C-suites decline incredibly, especially since the pandemic. And I do think about, you know, and I think that's also one reason why you see so many female entrepreneurs in beauty, right? Like they start off in bigger companies and then they exit and they start their own brands because that ceiling does exist for a number of different reasons. And I think like for the women who I see who make it, like I see it in two ways right now. Like I think in retail, we're seeing a change. If you look at Sephora, that's an almost all female C-suite. And now if you look at Ulta, that too, since January, they have a female CEO, she's Stillman. She's adding the Fortune 500 number, so that's great news. But I do think like if that's your goal, that you really have to think about the hard skills as well. And that, you know, that women tend to enter the industry through marketing, through communications, through HR, and it's very hard to transition into a C-suite role from that. I think, yes, you need the marketing, but yes, you need the sales, you need the P&L responsibility, and you know, you really need the global responsibility in today's world. And I think that that's something that is like absolutely dynamic. I also think that some of the things, you know, Robin talked about women about being an empathetic and emotional leader, and I think that's true. And I think it's also true that sometimes we as women have to learn confidence, negotiating skills, you know, when and how to speak up in a room and to make your voice heard. And they personally, and what I do is different than what they do. Like my leadership style, like I think it's incumbent on me to have a vision and on my team to have a voice. And then it's that combination that directs us to where we go. You know, for me, it's like we have an incredible young learner so plugged into TikTok and Twitch. And so I'm learning from her every day, right? Like I know that these are things that our readers, like, you need to know them, right? It's like, we're a bit older, we're not on TikTok as, I mean, I'm on TikTok, but I'm not on the 10 hours a day. And I think it's, it's listening and learning from each other.
So we have just a little bit of time left, but I just learned we do need to close short. What is your message to the next generation of leaders sitting in the room today? If you could just share what your advice would be, your message to them, because these are the next generation of leaders, and they are an amazingly talented group of young executives. So let's give them a little bit of this one before we finish. Yes, I don't understand.
Well, we all have very different stories from the past. Lot. I think one of the things we all had, and I'm gonna go back to it, is it's really important to listen. And if I were to guess, this would be like almost fondness, and this is really, if everyone in this room were to come back in 10 years, wherever you're gonna be, you have no idea where you're going. So life is a journey, or as I like to say, because I have a lot of humor in my life, it's a shopping spree. You are shopping for your career. Do not get turned off to any of that. I had many times where people asked me, do you want to go in sales or whatever? And I said, absolutely not. You need to go into every role where you can learn as much as you can learn, no matter what. And I know work is about money as well. There is no good job unless you're learning. And you can learn, I get to learn something every day. I'm a little older than you, but I really need this. I don't get around about this. So you need to be open to learning. You need to really listen. One of my favorite, I like 10 commandments, is you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. The first job that each of you are going to get, you're going to have a piece that you actually hate, and you're going to have someone who annoys you to death. But every time you can work through that, you're stronger as a person. In life, not to be overly dramatic, you learn more from your failures than your success. When I make a mistake, I'm really not going to do that again. Or when someone is on the team, that you learn so much, you almost want to thank people. I mean, you don't want to do it every day because it gets ugly. But so those would be my greatest things. And even though we seem confident and eloquent and delicious up here, I know what it was like to sit at the table and have a virtual heart attack because the room was going to be having to listen to me. And this is not so far back in my career. When that Macy's number went, I always say this to people, when the CEO came down and said, so Linda, how was your day? He did not care. He meant, did you make your number yesterday or see? So take life very seriously. The last part is your bosses or your peers' perception of you is your reality. Don't live in a bubble and think, about something else. Every day counts in life, and you have more challenges than we have, but we're a crowd that really knows what it takes to bring you forward. There are a lot of jobs in this business. So if you don't get a job, I'm just going to go back to something Robin said. Go to Sephora or Ulta or Macy's or Saks and Debbie where they sell beauty. You will learn more in that job, and you can keep looking for a job because you'll figure out what you're really good at. And communication is key. Without it, you will not succeed. That's my advice.
Well, the real lovely last.
There's so much advice I would give, and I have a daughter her age, so I talk to her all the time about these things. And she does it all, but occasionally she'll listen. And, I think what I've learned is what I would tell my younger self is have your community. Make sure you have a group around you, whether it's mentors, parents, siblings, friends, teachers, professors. How do you do that? Because there are going to be days we are women, we can't help it. I still, I'm president of the company. I still go home sometimes and I don't know, I pour a glass of wine if I just want today, but it happens at all levels. Have your community, have your walk around the building. Women like this that I've known so much here, it's really, they start that now. happened. And the last piece of advice I'll give you is love what you do. Just love it. You're doing it for years. Yeah, twists and turns. Take some of those side steps and support them. Love what you do. Shows without.
Thank you, Robin. Jenny, your advice for the future leaders in this.
I agree with everything that they said. I think that work is important. I think they have a lot of passion for any job interview that you're going on, especially in the beginning stages of your career. I would learn absolutely everything that you can about the company where you're going to interview. I would, advise, so I would say read WWD. There are editors, read everything. You have access to so much information. And I think that when you're going into a company, it's incumbent on you to know as much as possible as you can and to really, really be prepared, right? This is beauty, it's on trial. If you're doing with a brand, go see brand in store, try the products. If it's a public company, find out, how they've been doing, how's the performance of the company, brand, et cetera. It's a healthcare company, is this a category that's surging, is it accelerating? Even though you're not, you have access to so much information that will really enable you to understand and put into context where you are. And I think that's super exciting, big to have.
Absolutely. So thank you all. If we want to do a few Q&As, we have just about five minutes or so. We would like to ask a question to any of the leaders here. Anyone? I want Dalton. I know you have a question.
Hi, my name's Dalton. Thank you guys. This was such a fascinating panel. And my question is directed towards you, Robin, but it really does encompass all three of your areas of expertise. I love that you mentioned earlier about this kind of boom that we're having in the modern zeitgeist towards natural ingredients. But a lot of times what new DTC brands are not realizing is that synthetic ingredients are safer, sustainable, better for the environment. But where do each of you see the future of young brands going in terms of communicating their use of natural or more synthetic ingredients in their products?
It's a very technical question, and I'm just so happy that somebody like you, and it was not even, on this side of the business, understand that. It's education. And I think that is critical, and we're doing everything we can. Fragrance Foundation does everything they can. And our media does everything they can to communicate that something about naturalness. Sometimes, naturals are not as safe as you might think they are. Synthetics are the way to go. So I think, the thing that we're doing most now is helping to communicate that. And then there's the sustainability aspect of it, right? So replenishing, taking care. But to answer your question, where I see brands going, you still have a great divide. There are still those that are very much about natural ingredients. You see what Frito is doing with their skincare brands. It's the way of the brand's vision, and that's their platform. It's fine, and there's going to be an audience for it, but it's not to be afraid or challenged by the idea that synthetics work just as well and have more sustainable element to them. I still see both happening, but I do think there is a shift to understanding more that we need to save and take care.
We're going to be seeing the rise of biotech. And I think that will, that's going to be a huge effect on beauty. And I think also just, we talk about ingredient transparency and apps like UVEC, right? That really put the power into the hands of the consumer, because whether it's food or beauty product, you put your camera at the label and it gives the product a grade, basically. I mean, it's, that is, I think that's changing and how some people think about formulating. And I also think like today, I mean, historically, it's just about like the beauty that natural, people want efficacy. And depending on the category, right, so with skincare, usually efficacy trumps natural ingredients. But people are just becoming smarter about what they put out their bodies, whether it's a natural ingredient or.
I think I'm getting the eye that we're running out of time,
Last
right?
question, do you want to answer?
But, thank you guys. Yes, yes. Yay.
Well, we just have to ask each one, can we just have to do, what do you think is the lane that you want to be in? Do you want to be in sales and administration, marketing? Do you know what marketing is? Like, just shout out, what do you think is the job? You want to write? You want Robin's job, my job, what do you want?
CMO. Well, it is integrated marketing.
Marketing, but I just want to be. It's true, but marketing. We are all marketers.
Yes. It's everything.
Marketing is actually part of everything we do every day. My job is to get people to ask me what I want to ask them. You know, we're part of sales, we're part of marketing, and marketing is defined differently in every industry. It can be everything from taking Chanel's idea and how you transit in the United States to creating a brand. So I think you got it. I hope you're all going on the internet, do Robin's company and all these different companies. So I have to do this commercial, which we know. The Fragrance Foundation has a website. There's a membership piece on it at fragrance.org. If you click through on this website to all of these companies that are members, fragrance houses, brands, big and small, there are job listings. Define what marketing is. Because it can really be any job in the entire company.
All right, well, thank you. Well, any closing remarks? And no, we're good?
No, I
Would you
just
like
want to
to-
say, I'm in
Yes.
the department, I thought it was so good, I was at another meeting when I came here. I'm so glad to see this packed house, everybody was so excited for this, we deliver education here at the speed of the industry is here. No matter how beautiful and fabulous it is, it's hard work, and you have to be ready for the moment. And that's what we're trying to do, is prepare folks here to be ready for the moment, to be prepared for when you find your job. And I just thank you so much for taking time out of your busy lives, Pamela, Professor. You are the best. You're always bringing great ideas. We started this when,
Yes, we did.
when we first met about doing something in March, particularly in the industry with a lot of women and for women, but a lot of top leadership as women. We will change that, all you folks. And there's opportunities for everyone, men, women, and all. But you have to be ready to meet the moment. And that's what your job is now to do, to come out at 7 and 8 o'clock at night. When you might not want to be here, I in class and I knew 2 people in the class. And I'm like, how come I don't know anybody else? Because you're not showing up. It's not just a degree. It's being here, these opportunities that NYU gives you to meet the people on the very top of the industry.
And we can't say no.
I don't figure out how to do that either.
It's just what.
So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for planning this. And please come back anytime. Thank you.